If you look in the kitchens of millions of homes right now, you will see a name that has been trusted for over a century: Hotpoint. For generations, it was a brand that symbolized the very best of domestic engineering. It was reliable, it was heavy duty, and it was built to last. But today, the Hotpoint you buy today is a ghost. It is an illusion of choice, a hollow badge slapped onto mass-produced, unrepairable plastic machines. And in some cases, the reckless race to lower manufacturing costs hasn't just cost consumers their hard-earned money, it has literally set their homes on fire. I've been pulling domestic appliances apart on the workbench for over 40 years. I've seen the exact moment the industry decided to stop building machines for your home and started engineering them for the landfill. The fall of Hotpoint is perhaps the most glaring example of this betrayal. It is a story of global monopolies, corporate takeovers, and the devastating reality of planned obsolescence. This is the story of how an American meter reader revolutionized the world, and how multinational conglomerates turned that legacy into cheap disposable plastic. If you've been around long enough, you remember when their washers were built like absolute tanks. Today, not so much. I'm gathering real-world data to compare the lifespan of classic Hotpoint models against the modern versions hitting the market today. Before I expose what's really going on inside these new machines, I need your data. Drop a comment below. What was the last appliance that failed on you, and how many years did it actually last? Name and shame the brand, and don't forget to check your badges, because Hotpoint built a lot of Indesit and Creeder machines too. If you're ready to fight back against throwaway culture and demand the right to repair, smash that like button, subscribe, and let's dive in. To understand how far the brand has fallen, you have to understand how brilliantly it started. The story doesn't begin with washing machines, it begins with the humble electric iron. In 1905, an American power company meter reader named Earl Richardson noticed something strange. On Tuesdays, which was traditionally ironing day, power usage was spiking. Women were trying to use early, primitive electric irons, but they were terribly designed. They heated unevenly, getting hottest in the center, which made pressing collars and buttonholes nearly impossible. Richardson's wife suggested a brilliantly simple solution. Why not concentrate the heating element at the tip of the iron, right where you need it to press the buttons? Richardson went to his workshop, rewired the element, and the Hotpoint iron was born. It was a massive success. It was a tool designed by listening to the consumer, built to solve a physical problem. A few years later, another inventor named George A. Hughes achieved a similar breakthrough by inventing the electric range, replacing dangerous gas and coal stoves with clean electricity. In 1918, the corporate giant General Electric saw the brilliance of both men. They merged Richardson's heating company and Hughes's electric range company together. They kept the name that everyone recognized, and the Hotpoint appliance empire was officially born. Backed by General Electric's massive engineering department, the original Hotpoint appliances were industrial marvels. They used heavy cast iron, thick steel, and completely modular components. If a heating element burned out, you unbolted it and put a new one in. Nothing was glued, nothing was sealed. It was honest, lifetime engineering. While Hotpoint grew in America under General Electric, a totally separate powerhouse was being built across the Atlantic. In the 1920s, a joint venture brought the Hotpoint name to the UK. It was eventually absorbed by the British General Electric Company. For the UK and European market, British Hotpoint became the absolute gold standard for laundry. If you grew up in the UK in the 70s, 80s or 90s, Hotpoint wasn't just a brand, it was a member of the family. Let's take a trip down memory lane, because the machines from this era were the absolute gold standard of domestic engineering. The first machine Hotpoint ever manufactured in the UK and Europe was the legendary Hotpoint Twin Tub. Honestly, this was an absolutely amazing piece of equipment. It was a dream to service because the entire back panel came right off, giving you instant access to everything. But the real genius of the Twin Tub was how it recycled water. It featured a powerful central agitator that moved the clothes around properly, delivering an incredible clean. Once the wash was done, you lifted the laundry out and moved it over to the spin side. Now get this, that spin drum spun at around 2,000 to 3,000 revolutions per minute, which means way faster than most of the automatic machines you buy today. As it spun, it pumped that hot soapy water right back into the main wash tub. That meant you didn't waste a drop. You could immediately throw in your next load, maybe your darker colors, and keep right on washing. It was truly a brilliant, efficient piece of engineering, built to last and designed to be repaired. Hotpoint didn't just stop at twin tubs though. As the market started to shift, they moved into producing fully automatic top loaders, specifically models like the 15690 and the 15790, which later evolved into the well-known 96200 series. Right around the same time, they also launched the famous 18 series front loader. Both of these lineups were absolutely brilliant heavy-duty machines, but that automatic top loader never really took over the British market the way top loaders did across the Atlantic in America. And the reason for that was simple: space. They just took up too much real estate in our traditional compact British kitchens. But if you had the room for one, what a machine it was. It beautifully combined the brutal effective wash action of the twin tub with high-speed spinning, all wrapped up into one fully automatic unit. You just loaded your clothes, threw in the powder, and let it do its thing from wash to spin dry. The only real downside to them was that they were incredibly wasteful with water compared to front loaders. Personally, I loved working on them. From a service perspective, they were a dream. The entire back panel came off, giving you complete wide-open access to every single component. The gearbox was really the only expensive part on the machine that ever gave serious trouble, but back then, Hotpoint actually supplied proper service kits to rebuild them, rather than forcing you to scrap the whole thing. That was proper engineering. Furthermore, the legendary Hotpoint Liberator and the Aquarius series were absolute tanks. The Hotpoint Liberator was anchored by massive cast iron counterweights to stop the machine from dancing across the kitchen, and featured a mechanical timer that clicked with the authority of a bank vault. When the Liberator went into its spin cycle, the whole kitchen knew about it, but it never died. This machine was designed to be serviced. The whole back of the machine came off, which was a plastic panel. This then gave you access to the drum. The drum had an aluminium plate at the rear, which could be removed with 12 bolts, giving you clear access to the inside of the drum. The motor was fitted to the top of the machine rather than the bottom. You could easily replace the carbon brushes. The only downside with this machine is they used a steel drum that was enameled. This meant that the enamel could chip over time due to coins left in pockets. Let's talk about the Hotpoint Aquarius range, better known to engineers like me as the 95 series. It wasn't built quite as heavy duty as the legendary old 18 series, but make no mistake, it was still a fantastic bit of kit. In fact, it was actually a bit easier to work on because the lid and the front panel came off with zero fuss. This was also one of the first machines to transition to a plastic outer drum, but back then it was still designed, properly held together with clips so you could actually get inside it. Plus, they kept the motor mounted on the top just like the previous generation. To give you an idea of how reliable these were, back in my warehouse in Wales, I used to rebuild 8 to 10 of these absolute beauties every single day. All they ever really needed for a complete refresh were new carbon brushes, a drum spider, and a fresh set of bearings. Maybe a door seal if it was looking tired. In total, parts would cost me no more than about £45. That made the 95 series one of the most serviceable, rewarding machines to rebuild and sell second-hand to the general public. It was a win-win, affordable for the customer, and it kept good gear out of the landfill. As a technician, taking apart these vintage British machines is a masterclass in repairability. The washing machines featured splittable tubs held together by heavy steel clamps. They used massive, robust bearings. If a machine started getting noisy, we could break the drum down, tap out a 10-pound bearing, press a new one in, and that machine would run flawlessly for another 15 years. And we can't forget the kitchen. If you kept your food cold, you likely had a Hotpoint Ice Diamond fridge freezer. These were built with incredibly robust compressors that practically never lost their gas. If you needed clothes dried in the winter, you used the Reversomatic tumble dryer, built with thick metal casings and heavy-duty drive belts that could take decades of abuse. Even their early dishwashers, like the first edition range, utilized thick stainless steel impellers that pulverized food without snapping or jamming. They were built in an era where the manufacturer respected your investment, but the industry was changing. Global supply chains opened up, and the pressure to reduce prices became the only thing boardrooms cared about. Heavy steel was expensive to ship, mechanical timers were expensive to build, the era of British engineering was about to be slaughtered by the era of cheap plastic. The turning point and the beginning of the end for Hotpoint's quality happened in 2001. The British parent company decided to sell. They sold the UK Hotpoint brand to Merloni Electrodomestici, an Italian appliance manufacturer that would later rename itself the Indesit company. Indesit was known historically for the budget end of the market, and when they took over Hotpoint, the engineering philosophy changed overnight. They didn't want to build machines that lasted 20 years. They wanted to build machines as cheaply as physically possible. This is where the ultimate betrayal of the consumer began. Under Indesit's control, Hotpoint machines underwent extreme value engineering. They stripped out the splittable tubs and introduced the sealed, welded plastic drum. They took the bearings and they permanently trapped them inside a fused plastic shell. If a bearing fails on a modern Hotpoint, you can't just fix it. You have to buy a completely new drum assembly, which costs hundreds of pounds, or more likely you are forced to scrap the entire machine. This wasn't an accident, it was a calculated, deliberate design choice to ensure that a simple mechanical failure results in a brand new appliance sale. Now, this is exactly where the manufacturers started playing games and tricking the public. You'd walk into a high street showroom and you'd see rows of washing machines. You'd have an Indesit over here, a Creda over there, and a Hotpoint right next to it. To the average consumer, they looked like three entirely different options from three competing brands, but it was all an absolute illusion. Under the skin, they were the exact same machine. They used different front panels, rearranged the buttons, or slapped a slightly different door on the front to make you think you were getting a choice. But the reality, if you ripped those panels off, the internal components, the motors, the wiring, and the drums were identical. You were literally buying the exact same machine as the one sitting right next to it on the floor, just wrapped in a different badge. It was one of the first big steps toward the corporate smoke and mirrors we see in the appliance industry today. But shaving costs down to the absolute penny didn't just ruin the washing machines. It led to one of the biggest safety scandals in appliance history. Between 2004 and 2015, millions of Hotpoint, Indesit and Creda tumble dryers were manufactured with a fatal design flaw. To save manufacturing costs, the heating elements were positioned in a way where excess lint could build up and make direct contact with the heater. The result? The machines were catching fire, hundreds of homes were damaged, and families were rushed to hospitals. It became a national scandal, forcing the recall and modification of millions of machines. This is the ultimate cost of cheap engineering. When you strip all the quality out of a machine to maximize profit, it doesn't just cost the consumer money. It costs them their homes, and tragically, it has cost lives. Under its new corporate ownership, the Hotpoint badge became associated with an unprecedented wave of product safety scandals. The local government association reported that at the height of the crisis, faulty tumble dryers were causing 3 fires every single day in England and Wales. But what shocked the public was the corporate response. A parliamentary inquiry criticised the parent company for a painfully slow recall process and even condemned their use of non-disclosure agreements to silence customers who had experienced fires. Then came the darkest day in the brand's history in June 2017, the Grenfell Tower fire. It was the deadliest structural fire in the United Kingdom since the Second World War, claiming 72 lives, while the rapid spread of the fire was blamed on the building's exterior cladding. The official investigation confirmed exactly how the devastating inferno started, an electrical fault inside a Hotpoint FF175BP fridge freezer on the 4th floor. You would think the industry would completely overhaul their engineering after that, but just 2 years later, in late 2019, the parent company had to issue another massive recall. This time, over 500,000 Hotpoint and Indesit washing machines built between 2014 and 2018 were recalled. Why? Because the plastic door locking system was found to overheat and catch fire during a wash cycle. Consumers were literally told to unplug their machines or wash their clothes in cold water just to prevent their kitchens from going up in smoke. In fact, Whirlpool had to set up a dedicated website just so millions of worried homeowners could frantically type in their model numbers to see if their daily laundry machine was a fire hazard. This is the ultimate tragic cost of modern manufacturing. And amidst all of this, the brand itself was carved up by global monopolies. In 2014, the American giant Whirlpool bought Indesit, taking total control of the European Hotpoint brand. Meanwhile, over in America, the Chinese megacorporation Haier bought GE Appliances, taking control of the American Hotpoint brand. But the corporate musical chairs didn't stop there. As recently as April 2024, the ownership of the brand shifted once again. Whirlpool merged its European operations with the Turkish appliance giant Arçelik. Together, they formed a massive new conglomerate called Beko Europe. Today, Arçelik holds a dominant 75% share of this new company, while Whirlpool retains just 25%. As of today, the Hotpoint brand is a complete illusion. It's a badge owned by completely different multinational monopolies, depending on what continent you live on. When you walk into a store in the UK and buy a Hotpoint, you are just buying a Whirlpool or an Indesit with a different sticker on the front. It is the illusion of choice. But let's be brutally honest. This isn't just a Hotpoint problem. The entire appliance industry has adopted this identical playbook. Built-in obsolescence is a global epidemic across all domestic appliances. We are seeing smart refrigerators equipped with £300 printed circuit boards that fry after a single power surge, rendering the fridge completely useless. We are seeing incredibly expensive, eco-friendly heat pump dryers that are practically impossible for the average consumer to clean, choking on their own lint and failing just outside of their warranty periods. Ovens with unrepairable digital touchscreens instead of heavy-duty knobs. They have optimized global supply chains for the cheapest possible unit cost, and they have passed the devastating financial and environmental bill directly onto you. Mountains of e-waste are growing every single day, filled with machines that could have been fixed if only the manufacturer had allowed it. In 1905, Earl Richardson built an iron to solve a problem for the consumer. He built something designed to work and designed to last. For decades, the Hotpoint name honored that legacy. But today, that legacy has been swallowed by corporate monopolies. When you buy a Hotpoint today, you aren't buying the robust engineering of the past. You are buying an appliance designed with a countdown clock. You are buying a sealed plastic tub and a business model that relies on your machine breaking down. The industry wants you to accept this. They want you to believe that throwing away a washing machine every 4 years is just the cost of modern life. It isn't. We have the right to demand better, and we have the right to repair what we own. If you are tired of paying premium prices for disposable machines, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and share this video. If we really helped, you can always click on the Bipolar Beer page as well. Thanks very much indeed for watching.